What's up guys, I'm Kel, Red Zone Rogue, and welcome to my very first Commander deck strategy video. I think I'm going to go with that. They're not really deck techs. These videos are designed to inspire you guys to go out and make your own sweet builds, especially for Commander. I think Commander is one of those places where, you know, personalizing the decks is really important. Like doing something that you really like, something that you think is really cool. And this deck is actually one of my favorite Commander decks that I've ever built, other than like my very first, my Maelstrom Wanderer deck, which is very near and dear to my heart, but this one is sweet. This is a mono-black Liliana Heretical healer deck, as you can see here. She's a really sweet card. Before I start going over the deck, I'm just going to say I kind of bunched how I'm going to do this deck strategy video by card type instead of by the effect. I was going to do by effect, but I found a lot of the cards in the deck have multiple effects, and I didn't want to like talk about them more than once because, you know, there's a lot of stuff to go over, and I'm going to go over the cards individually here. So I'm going to try to talk fast, and I hope you guys can keep up. Without further ado, let's start. So obviously the commander of the deck is Liliana Heretical Healer. She's a 2/3 legendary creature, human cleric, for 1 of any and 2 black. She has lifelink, which is, you know, it's kind of cool. It's not super relevant, but it comes up every now and then. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, exile her, then return her to the battlefield transformed, you know, on this side. And if you do, you get a 2/2 black zombie creature on the battlefield. So the big important thing here is it says non-token creature. We do have some token generators in the deck, so just keep in mind that those token generators, you know, will not really help her flip very often. We do have a lot of sacrifice outlets in the deck, which is why we do have the token generators, but they do not help with this side of Liliana. And then her other side, Liliana Defiant Necromancer, looking very sleek right there. She is a Planeswalker, Liliana. She has her +2. Each player discards a card, so that's pretty relevant, especially each player. And we do have some stuff that helps us with that. We have our -X, return target non-legendary creature, so that's pretty important. With converted mana cost X from your graveyard to the battlefield. And, you know, she comes into play with 3 loyalty, so hitting, like, being able to get something back immediately when she flips, either, you know, 3 or less, is pretty important. And then she has a -8. It says you get an emblem with whenever a creature you control dies, whenever a creature dies, return to the battlefield under your control at the beginning of the next end step. So this is really sweet. So if you can, like, ever ultimate her, then it's actually insane. I was gonna say crazy and insane at the same time, but it's pretty nuts. It's Commander, so that probably won't happen, but still really, really cool. So yeah, let's start talking about the creatures of the deck. So first up, we have our token generating creatures, and I will go over these one by one, but rest assured, these just, you know, they make tokens, and they're pretty efficient, and they're pretty powerful. So the Cryptbreaker is a pretty good one. He's only a 1-drop, and having a pretty low curve in Commander is kind of underrated, and I think it's actually important. And this is a pretty good 1-drop. This is a 1/1 zombie for 1 black. You can pay 1 of any and 1 black and tap it and discard a card to put a 2/2 black zombie creature token on the battlefield. And you can tap 3 untapped zombies you control to draw a card and lose 1 life. And Liliana creates zombies. When she flips, she makes a 2/2 zombie. This can create zombies. You can pitch, you know, crappy land cards late in the game. You can pitch some other cards that are, you know, really easy to recur. Cryptbreaker is a pretty sweet inclusion in this deck, and, you know, pretty good 1-drop. Like a toolbox in a can 1-drop. I like it. Next, we have the Ophiomancer. This is a 2/2 for 2 of any and 1 black. This is a human shaman, and it says at the beginning of each upkeep, not just your upkeep, every upkeep, if you control no snakes, put a 1/1 black snake with Death Touch into the field. And that's really sweet. This 1/1 Death Touch every single turn, it really dissuades people from attacking you. You can use it to, like, you know, sacrifice to various outlets. You can basically do it like every single turn. Like, it's a sweet card. I really like Ophiomancer in this deck quite a bit. And this is probably a card that doesn't need any introduction, but I'll go over it anyway. Very, very powerful card. This is Kalitas, Trader of Get. He is a 3/4 lifelink vampire warrior legendary creature for 2 of any and 2 black. I said that in a weird order, but I hope you got it. He's a very powerful card, good enough to be a commander in himself. And it says, if a non-token creature an opponent controls would die, instead exile that card and put a 2/2 black zombie creature token onto the battlefield. So yeah, he generates 2/2 zombies anytime an opponent's thing would die, and it also kind of hoses them over, or removes all their stuff from the game that would die. And then you can pay 2 of any and a black to sacrifice another vampire or zombie, and he gets 2 +1/+1 counters. So yeah, pretty good. He's also kind of like a toolbox in a can. Very powerful card. like I said, hosts over graveyard strategies. Really good inclusion in the deck. And then finally, we have the Gravy Train Grave Titan. This is a 6/6 for 4 of any and 2 black. He is a giant. He has Death Touch. It says whenever Grave Titan enters the battlefield or attacks, you put two zombies on the field. You get 2 black zombies. So yeah, that's just really sweet. He just makes an army. He's a really cool card. Pretty easy inclusion into a mono black deck, especially if you have like ways to abuse the tokens. So next up we have what I'd like to call creatures that we want to sacrifice, either because they're really good because they come back, or because they have like good sacrifice abilities. So first off we have Relentless Dead, 2/2 menace for 2 black. When Relentless Dead dies, you may pay 1 black. If you do, return it to its owner's hand. So pretty cool. It can keep returning, and that's pretty sweet. And also when it dies, you can pay X. If you do, return it another target zombie creature card with convertiment cost X from your graveyard to the battlefield. And we do have some incidental zombies in the deck. So yeah, just a sweet recursion card. Very, very cool. Next we have the good old Reassembling Skeleton. This is a pretty simple card. It's a 1/1 for a black and 1 of any. Skeleton Warrior. You can pay 1 of any and a black and return it from the graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Yeah, just really sweet. It's a good fodder card. There's a lot of ways to sacrifice creatures, and this is one of the best creatures to sacrifice because it's so easy to come back. And the next card is also pretty good in that kind of vein, but costs a little more to do. This is Endless Cockroaches. It's a 1/1 for 1 of any and 2 black. It's a bunch of cockroaches. And when it dies, you can return it to its owner's hand. Once again, a really, really good card to sacrifice with, or many sacrifice effects. Next one we have is a card that you can just sacrifice itself. It's a Burnished Heart. So 2/2 for, 3 of any artifact creature elk. Good old Elmer. 3 of any, sacrifice Burnished Heart, search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, and put them onto the battlefield tapped. Then shuffle your library. This is a very, very powerful card for this deck, because we care about our swamps. Because we are running Cabal Coffers. We'll go over that a little bit later. But yeah, Burnished Heart is a pretty good card, and it also, triggers Liliana to flip. So really, really sweet card for the deck. And then finally we have a new card in the deck, Vindictive Lich. This guy is a 4/1 for 3 of any and a black. It's when he dies, choose 1 or more. Each mode must target a different player. He's also a zombie wizard, so the zombiness is kind of relevant. And it says, target opponent sacrifices a creature, target opponent discards 2 cards, and target opponent loses 5 life. In a 4-player game, this is awesome. I love this card. He is so cool. Really one of the best cards to like get back and abuse. Like it's a lot of fun. You can do a bunch of like politicsy type stuff. Yeah, Vindictive Lich is pretty sweet. Next up, we have creatures that want us to sacrifice dudes. Alright, so first up we have Disciple of Bolas. This is a pretty cool card. It's a 2/1 for 3 of any and a black. He's a human wizard. When Disciple of Bolas enters the battlefield, sacrifice another creature. You gain X life and draw X cards where X is that creature's power. So yeah, you can just sacrifice a zombie. You can sacrifice just basically anything you want. You get some good value with this card. You want to sacrifice something with pretty good power, so sacrificing something like the Vindictive Lich with 4 power is pretty good. But yeah, just a fantastic card. Sacrifice whatever you can. Next we have Sidisi Undead Vizier. She's a 4/6 zombie naga. She's a legend. 3 of any and 2 black. She has Death Touch. Also exploit. And what that means is when she enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice a creature. So you can actually sacrifice her. And if you exploited a creature, when she comes into play, you may search your library for any card and put it into your hand. So she basically demonic tutors for a card if you sacrifice the dude. Like I said, we have a lot of good stuff to sacrifice. We have even more in the deck, even other token generators. So yeah, also at the very worst, you can just sacrifice yourself. Next we have Ghoul Color Gissa. This is a really good card. One good enough to be a pretty powerful commander in herself. So she's a human wizard, legendary creature, for 3 of any and 2 black, 3/4. You can pay a black and tap her to sacrifice another creature to put X 2/2 black zombie creatures onto the battlefield where X is the sacrifice creature's power. So she just basically makes armies. She can sacrifice a bunch of stuff, make a bunch of dudes, like pretty sweet card. And finally we have one of my favorite cards, Razaketh the Foul-Blooded. He's a 8-drop, 5 of any and 3 black legendary creature demon. He has flying, trample. You can pay 2 life, sacrifice another creature, search your library for a card and put it in your hand, and then shuffle your library. This guy can go absolutely crazy with something like Reassembling Skeleton. Just absolutely nuts. So yeah, Razaketh is a fantastic card. I know some people want him banned in Commander because he's so powerful. You can search up a whole bunch of different stuff. Like, it is so good. All right, next we have some creatures that help us ramp. And we're going to kick it off with good old Sad Robot, Solemn Simulacrum. He's a 4-drop. He's a 2/2 artifact creature golem. When he enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a basic land, put it into the battlefield tapped, and when he dies, you get a draw card. So he's also a really good card to sacrifice. He ramps you a land. Just an all-around fantastic card. A lot of people run this in EDH. It's a no-brainer, kind of. And then we also have Cryptghast, another fantastic card for this particular deck, especially, you know, mono black. 3 of any and a black for a spirit. He has Extort. And it says, whenever you tap a swamp for mana, add 1 black mana to your mana pool. And that's kind of exactly what this does, too. This is Nirkana Revenant. She's a 4/4 for 4 of any and a black. She has the same exact ability as Cryptghast. Whenever you tap a swamp for mana, add 1 black mana to your mana pool. And you can also pay a black to give her +1/+1. Very, very cool card. Kind of an expensive card for what it does, especially when compared to Cryptghast, but they're mana doublers. They're pretty good. So, yeah. Kind of no-brainer for a mono black deck. Next, I run my dudes that kill other dudes. And what makes these really cool is because they're really easy to recur with Liliana, with the exception of Shriekmaw. So let's go over Shriekmaw first. He's a 3/2 for 4 many and a black creature, elemental, with fear. When he comes into play, destroy target non-artifact, non-black creature, but he has Evoke. You can pay the Evoke cost for 1 of any and a black, and then you have to sacrifice him immediately, but you get to blow up one of your opponent's dudes. Really, really good. And if you pay with his Evoke cost, comes into play, blows up a dude, then you have to sacrifice him. If you have Liliana in play, then she flips because a creature you control died. That was a non-token. So, yeah, really, really cool. Shriekmaw is a pretty good card in this deck. I mean, all the cards are pretty good cards in this deck. I should probably stop saying that. So next up we have Bone Shredder. Kind of similar. A lot of these cards are pretty similar. 3-drop. It's a minion for 2 of any and a black. 1/1 Flying Echo. When he comes into play, destroy target non-artifact, non-black creature. And it's a 3-drop, so you can get it back immediately on Liliana's Planeswalker side. So that's pretty cool. This is also a 3-drop, and this is also a 3-drop. So you can all get these back immediately with Liliana's Planeswalker side. Fleshbag Marauder is a 3/1 for 2 of any and a black. When he comes into play, each player sacrifices a creature. So once again, this guy almost immediately, or he does immediately trigger Liliana to flip. So you play him, you can sacrifice himself, you can sacrifice a 1/1 or something, and Liliana flips. So pretty sweet card, and all your opponents have to sacrifice stuff too. So yeah, Fleshbag Marauder is pretty cool. And then Big Game Hunter is kind of like really good tech for this deck. So he is a 1/1 Human Rebel Assassin for 1 of any and 2 black. When he comes into play, destroy target creature with power 4 or greater, it can't be regenerated, and he has Madness of 1 black. So on Liliana's Planeswalker side, you can have everyone discard a card, discard him, and then play him for only 1. Really sweet. Good synergy with Big Game Hunter. So next up we have creatures that give me card advantage. I think that's what I call these. So I'll kick it off first with Phyrexian Rager. It's a pretty simple card. For 2 of any and a black, it's a 2/2. When it comes into play, you get a draw card and lose 1 life. It's pretty easy to recur with Liliana, and he's just a good body. You can sacrifice him, he replaces himself. It's a pretty good card for this deck. Now we have one of my favorite cards ever printed. This is one of my pet cards, Undead Gladiator. He is a 3/1 for 1 of any and 2 black. He is a zombie barbarian. You can pay 1 of any and a black, discard a card from your hand, return Undead Gladiator from your graveyard to your hand, play this ability only during your upkeep, and you can pay 1 of any and a black and cycle him. So this is a very, very grindy card. You can keep like churning through cards in your hand, putting them in your graveyard, like lots of shenanigans with this card. One of my favorite cards ever printed, like I said, just really, really cool. Next we have Erebos, God of the Dead. 5/7 for 3 of any and a black. Legendary enchantment creature god. He's indestructible. As long as your devotion to black is less than 5, Erebos isn't a creature. And your opponents can't gain life, which is actually pretty relevant. And you can pay a black and 1 of any and pay 2 life and draw a card. So yeah, just a pretty strong draw engine in of himself, and he, sometimes becomes a 5/7 that can attack. So yeah, Erebos is pretty cool. I know a lot of people who play Erebos as their commander as well. Next we have Graveborn Muse. We do have a lot of incidental zombies in the deck, so this is a pretty good card for that kind of synergy. It's a 3/3 for 2 of any and a black. It is a zombie spirit, so it is a zombie. At the beginning of your upkeep, you draw X cards and lose X life, where X is the number of zombies you control. So this is kind of like a double-edged sword kind of thing. You don't want to have too many zombies. You don't want to like kill yourself with it, but drawing cards is sweet. So yeah, Graveborn Muse is also sweet. And then finally for this section we have Soul Scarred Demon. This guy is a 6/6 for 5 of any and 2 black. He's a flying demon. When he enters the battlefield, you get a Demonic Tutor. Search your library for a card, put it in your hand. Yeah, it's just an awesome card, so not much else to say. And finally for the creatures, we have Grey Merchant of Asphodel, or Gary, Merchant of Asphodel. He's a 2/4 for 3 of any and 2 black. He is a zombie. When he enters the battlefield, each opponent loses X life, where X is your devotion to black. You gain life equal to the life lost this way. This card is very powerful in a mono black deck. You can drain your opponents for a ton of life. Like, Gary's a sweet card, and I have no idea why he's common, but yeah, man. Get in my deck, Gary. So next I have the only 2 Planeswalkers in the deck, and they're both Lilianas, because I like Liliana, man. What can I say? So first up, we have Liliana, Death's Majesty. It is a Planeswalker Liliana for 5 loyalty, has 3 of any and 2 black, and her abilities are +1, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token, once again, more incidental zombies. Then you're going to put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard, and -3, which is probably my favorite one, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield if that creature is a black zombie in addition to its other colors and types. So yeah, she reanimates dudes. It's really sweet. And then -7, destroy all non-zombie creatures. So she's kind of got some zombie synergy going on here. Once again, we have a bunch of incidental zombie stuff, and she just kind of reanimates dudes and makes tokens, and yeah, fantastic card. I love this one a lot. And then we have our just classic Liliana Vess. She is a Planeswalker Liliana for 5 loyalty, 3 of any, 2 black. +1, target player discards a card. Not the best in Commander, but her -2 is awesome. You gotta search your library for a card, shuffle it, or shuffle your library, and then put the card on top. So she basically lets you Vampiric Tutor, which is super good. And then -8, put all creature cards from all graveyards into the battlefield under your control. Yeah, she's awesome. She's really cool. She's kind of like a good Commander Planeswalker in my opinion, because she tutors for stuff. Yeah. Next up we have the artifacts, and I'm going to start with my artifact ramp. So just kick it off with Sol Ring. Sol Ring is Sol Ring. Basically everyone plays with it. Just kind of it's Sol Ring, man. Next we have the Mind Stone. This is a pretty good ramp card. You can tap it to add 1 colorless mana to your mana pool, and then you can pay 1 and tap it and sack it to draw a card, which is sweet. And it only costs 2 to play. And it does not come into play tapped, so yeah, Mind Stone is cool. Jet Medallion, also really cool. It says your black spells cost 1 less to play. You play in a mono black deck? Yeah, man, Jet Medallion, pretty good inclusion. And only 2 mana is a pretty efficient card. It'll save you a lot of mana in the long run. You have Thran Dynamo, another one that a lot of people play. Just a 4-drop artifact. You can tap to add 3 colorless to your mana pool. Just a pretty good staple in Commander. And then finally we have Caged Sun. Once again, a staple in monocolored decks. It's a 6-drop artifact. When it enters the battlefield, choose a color. We're choosing black. Creatures you control of the chosen color get +1/+1. And then whenever a land's ability adds 1 or more mana of the chosen color to your mana pool, add 1 additional mana of that color to your mana pool. So it's not just swamps, it doubles all of your black mana producing things, which is really sweet. Like, more mana doublers, the better. Caged Sun, real good. Geth's Grimoire is a pretty unique inclusion for the Liliana deck. It's an artifact for 4. Whenever an opponent discards a card from his or her hand, you may draw a card. So this is absolutely crazy with Liliana's Planeswalker side, making every person discard a card. If you're playing in a 3-player game or a 4-player game, so you're playing in a 4-player game, everyone discards a card, including you, and then you draw 3 cards. That is absolutely nuts. And if your other opponents are just randomly discarding cards or doing any other thing like that, you just get to draw cards. Like, this is sweet. Sweet synergy for Liliana. Next we have Mind's Eye, and this is a pretty simple artifact. It's good in colors that don't get to draw a whole lot of cards. Basically anything but blue. It is a 5-drop artifact, and it says whenever an opponent draws a card, you may pay 1 colorless. If you do, draw a card. Yeah, this card is really sweet. Once again, really good for basically any non-blue deck. You can draw a lot of cards in Commander with this. Expedition Map is a pretty easy inclusion in this deck. You know, 1-drop artifact. You can pay 2, sack it, search your library for any land card, so not just a basic land, just any land card. Reveal it, put it in your hand, and shuffle your library. You can search for Maze of Ith, Cabal Coffers, just a bunch of really sweet cards in this deck. Once again, we will go over those when we get to the land section. Next up is Sensei's Divining Top, and this is kind of just like a good value card. I would keep in mind not to abuse this. A lot of people get really annoyed when you top too much, but yeah, I mean, it's just so good in Commander. It's like a really easy inclusion. it might warrant being cut because it doesn't really have any strong synergy in this particular deck, but, you know, 1-drop artifact, you get a look at the top 3 cards of your library, put them back in any order, then you can tap it and draw a card, and if it's Sensitive Divining Top on top of your deck, like, pretty cool stuff. I like it a lot. It's not as good because we're not running fetch lands or anything like that, but I still think it's a pretty sweet card. Next up is Vedalken Orrery, and yeah, there's almost no instants in this deck, so this card is absolutely nuts. 4-drop artifact, you may play non-land cards anytime you can play an instant, so it makes all of your shit instants. All of it. And there's only like 2 or 3 instants in the whole deck. Yeah, this is crazy. This just makes it so that all of your like really slow stuff becomes really fast. Next we have Phyrexian Arena. This is a 3-drop enchantment. You probably already know what this does, but let's go over it anyway. 2 black, 1 of any. At the beginning of your turn, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. Just a fantastic draw engine. Next up we have Black Market. This is another really sweet mono black card. It's actually pretty sweet in general, especially if you're like expecting a lot of creatures to die, and we expect a lot of creatures to die in this deck. And it says, whenever a creature is put into a graveyard from play, put a charge counter on Black Market, and at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, you add 1 black mana to your mana pool for each charge counter on Black Market. So yeah, basically you get a bunch of mana. The more stuff dies, the more counters you get, the more mana you get. Very good for Commander, very good because we're sacrificing a lot of dudes. Your opponents will be like losing dudes, like, yeah, sweet card. Next up we have Grave Betrayal, one of my favorite cards in Commander. It is enchantment for 5 of any and 2 black. Yeah, it's a 7-drop, but whenever a creature you don't control dies, return it to the battlefield under your control with an additional +1/+1 counter on it at the beginning of the next end step. That creature is a black zombie in addition to its other colors and types. So yeah, whenever anything dies that's not yours, you get it, and it's bigger, and it's a black zombie. Yeah, I don't think there's any more to say other than, like, yeah, you just get anything that dies. That's so sweet. Next up, we have one of the best token generators in the entire game, Bitter Blossom. Enchantment, well, it's a tribal enchantment fairy for 1 of any and a black. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life, and you put a 1/1 black fairy rogue creature token flying onto the battlefield. Once again, pretty simple. We're going to be generating a lot of tokens. We're going to use those tokens to sack with stuff like Razaketh and the next card, which is absolutely crazy with Bitter Blossom. So yeah, just another pretty sweet, good low drop inclusion in the deck. So next up we have one of the all-stars in the deck, and this is Attrition. I apologize, you probably can't read it. It is a 3-drop enchantment, 2 black, 1 of any. It says, pay a black, sacrifice a creature, destroy target non-black creature. And with all of the recursion creatures, with like Bitter Blossom, all the token generators, you can blow up so many guys. Like, Attrition is so good. Like, it's one of my favorite cards in the entire deck, and one of the things that makes this deck as good as it is. So yeah, Attrition is a great inclusion. Next we have Oath of Liliana. This is a pretty interesting enchantment. It's a legendary enchantment for 2 of any and a black. It is, you know, Liliana themed, so that's a huge plus for this deck. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent sacrifices a creature, and at the beginning of each end step, if a Planeswalker enters the battlefield under your control this turn, you get a 2/2 black zombie creature. So basically anytime Liliana flips, you get an additional black zombie. Anytime you play any of the other Lilianas, you get a black zombie. Like, it's really sweet, and it's also a removal spell, so it does something when you play it. Like, pretty sweet inclusion into this deck. Next up I have Grave Pact and Dictate of Erebos. These are basically the same card, but one costs a little bit more, one costs a little bit more black. Anyway, let's get on to it. They're both enchantments. Grave Pact costs 3 black and 1 of any. Dictate of Erebos costs 3 of any and 2 black. Dictate has flash. Grave Pact does not, and they both say, whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent sacrifices a creature. Yep. So anytime one of your things dies, everyone else has to have something die too. You know, these are some of my favorite cards from, well, Grave Pact is one of my favorite cards from when I was first starting to play Magic. Like, it was so sweet. And Dictate is kind of a cheaper version of it. I think it's like growing in price these days, but if you can still get Dictate for cheap, then I would buy them because they are really sweet. Next up, we have the instants and sorceries of the deck, and we're kicking it off with the 2 best tutors ever made, Demonic Tutor and Vampiric Tutor. Demonic Tutor, which is also Liliana themed, which is another huge plus for the deck. Yeah, it's not much else to say. Like, you probably already know what this does. In case you don't, sorcery, 1 of any, 1 black, search your library for a card, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. You just get anything you want, whatever you need for the situation, whatever you need to win. Like, Demonic Tutor is a fantastic card. honestly kind of broken. Vampiric Tutor along the same veins. It's an instant for 1 black. Pay 2 life. Search your library for any card. Put it. Then you shuffle your library and then you put it on top of your deck. So you don't get it immediately, but it's really good at the end of someone's turn. It's really good if you already know you're gonna draw a card. Like, just absolutely fantastic cards. Next up I have Night's Whisper and Sign in Blood, and these are basically the same card. So Sign in Blood costs 2 black, it's a sorcery. Target player draws 2 cards and loses 2 life. So just a 2-drop, you draw 2 cards. Also I like the foiling on this, it's just like the blood and the rings are foil. I think it's pretty cool. If you can get a Sign in Blood and foil, I would. I think they're pretty cheap. And then Night's Whisper, basically the same thing, except it doesn't say target player. You draw 2 cards and lose 2 life. Yeah. Just fantastic, good black draw spells. Next up we have Yawgmoth's Will, and damn, like Yawgmoth's Will is good on so many levels. It's just a good value card. It's a good like way to end the game. It's just so good. In case you don't know what it does, it's a sorcery for 2 of any and a black. Until end of turn, you may play cards in your graveyard as though they were in your hand. Cards put into your graveyard this turn are removed from the game instead. So basically your graveyard becomes your hand until end of turn, and you can generate a shitload of mana, which you can generate a shitload of mana in this deck. You can just blow up everything, you can kill your opponents, you can play dudes, you can just a whole bunch of stuff. Yawgmoth's Will is a obvious inclusion in any deck that can play it, assuming you can afford it. So next up we have my 2 spell finishers of the deck, and Exsanguinate I feel is probably a little bit overused, and I kind of want to swap it out for something else, but for the time being it's still in the deck. And Profane Command is just a really sweet card with a bunch of different modes, and I'm going to include this in the deck no matter what. So what Exsanguinate does, it's sorcery for 2 black and X. Each opponent loses X life, you gain life equal to the life lost this way. So yeah, generate a whole bunch of mana, kill everyone. That's pretty simple. Profane Command is a little bit different, but it's still really sweet. It costs 2 black and X, like Exsanguinate. It's a sorcery. And it says, choose 2. Target player loses X life. Return target creature card with converted mana cost X or less from your graveyard to the field. To the battlefield. Whatever. Or target player gets target creature gets -X until end of turn. Or up to X target creatures gain fear, which means they can't be blocked except by artifact creatures and black creatures until end of turn. That was a lot of text. But in any case, it's really sweet. You can bring a dude back. You can dome your opponent out. You can kill a dude. You can give all your dudes fear. Like, there's a lot of ways to win. Like, it's not uncommon to hit your opponent for like 10, give all your guys fear, and attack them for the win. Like, it's sweet. Profane Command is a really cool card. Next up, we have another finisher in the deck, and this is Rise of the Dark Realms. Once again, features Liliana on the art. We got to include it, man. It's so good. For 9 mana, 7 of any, and 2 black, put all creature cards from all graveyards onto the battlefield under your control. Yep, you just get everything that's died in this game, or anything that's been milled, or you just get everything. This card's sweet. This is a cool, fun way to close out a game, I think. Alright, now we're going to get onto some removal spells, and these ones are my only 2, like, instant speed, single, I'm going to put that in quotes, target removal spells. So Snuff Out, once again, features Liliana. You got to include it, man. You got to have the Liliana art. Other than that, it's basically a free kill spell. It costs 3 of any and a black. It's an instant. If you control a swamp, you may pay 4 life rather than pay its mana cost. So just for 4 life, you get to destroy target non-black creature. It can't be regenerated. Yeah. So sometimes I'll even like tutor for this, just so I can have a free blow-up spell at some point. If you know your opponent's going to do something crazy, like Snuff Out is excellent card. Malicious Affliction, on the other hand, is excellent, but in a different way. So it's a 2-drop, 2 black, instant, has Morbid, so when you cast Malicious Affliction, if a creature died this turn, you can copy it, and then you can choose new targets for the copy, and it says, destroy target non-black creature. So yeah, if something died, you can blow up 2 guys. This is a sweet 2-for-1. I don't really like single target kill spells in Commander, except for like, maybe like the really cheap ones, like Swords of Plowshares or Path to Exile or something, but these ones are pretty good. This one's free, and this one kills 2 guys, so yeah. And rounding out all of the non-land cards, we have the board wipes of the deck. I run 5 board wipes. One of them's a pseudo board wipe, and we'll talk about that one first. So let's talk about Living Death, one of my favorite cards from my childhood starting to play Magic. It says, set aside all creature cards in all graveyards, then put each creature that is in play into its owner's graveyard, then put each creature set aside into the owner's battlefield. So basically you swap your graveyard for stuff in the battlefield. Costs 5, 3 of any, and 2 black. You just have to be really careful playing this card, because, you know, you don't want to give your opponents too much of an advantage. The best situation for this is if all your stuff is dead and they have a whole bunch of stuff, then you basically flip the tables. This is a really cool combat card. I like Living Death a lot. Next we have Mutilate. This is a really good Wrath spell for mono black. It's 2 of any, 2 black. It says all creatures get -1/-1 until end of turn for each swamp you control. And you're going to control a lot of swamps. So yeah, you can give a whole bunch of stuff. Like, I've given up to like -15 before. So yeah, Mutilate, pretty good. Next up we just have Damnation. Basically straight up Wrath of God. 2 of any, 2 black, destroy all creatures that can't be regenerated. Just really sweet inclusion. Next we have Toxic Deluge. As an additional cost to play Toxic Deluge, pay X life. All creatures get -X until end of turn. It only costs 3, 2 of any and a black. Just, once again, one of like the staple Wrath spells in black these days. And then finally we have Decree of Pain. And this card's ridiculous. It's a 8-drop, 6 of any, 2 black, sorcery, destroy all creatures, they can't be regenerated, then draw a card for each creature destroyed this way. Careful not to mill yourself out, because it's gotten real close to that before. Then it has Cycling, 3 of any, 2 black, discard this card, draw a card, and then when you cycle it, all creatures get -2/-2 until end of turn. So, it's got some versatility. It's got like some instant speed applications because you can discard it, you can cycle it as an instant, kill a bunch of like little weenie guys. Like, Decree of Pain is really sweet. Alright, we're going to kick off the lands with a card that is not a land. Well, it is a land, but it doesn't add any mana. So, it's Maze of Ith. Pretty sweet card. You can tap it. Target attacking creature becomes untapped. This creature neither deals nor receives damage until end of turn, or until as a result of combat. Whatever. You know what it does. It's Maze of Ith. You can target your own dudes, which is really sweet. You can like do a big flunge and then untap like the guy that they want to kill, or anything like that. Maze of Ith is a really sweet card, but be careful when including it in your deck because it doesn't add any mana. I would not include it as part of your mana base. Include it as part of like your spells. Next up we have our land destruction lands, and these are pretty simple. Strip Mine, you can tap it, add a colorless, and you can tap it and sack it to blow up any land. You just blow up any land. Just pretty sweet. And then Ghost Quarter, you can tap it, add a colorless, and you can tap it and destroy any land, and then its controller can search their deck for a basic land card. So this is kind of like the same thing. They each blow up any land, but this one lets your opponent search for a basic. A lot of people don't play a lot of basics in Commander, I've found. Some people do, but a lot of people don't. So Ghost Quarter can sometimes just be a Strip Mine. Sometimes it's not, but, you know, blowing up their, like, I don't know, just their Nykthos or something really powerful is more than worth it for Ghost Quarter. Also, if you have a Wasteland, I would swap out Ghost Quarter for Wasteland. I have 2 Wastelands and they're already being used in different decks, and we'll probably get to those decks at some point, but yeah, Ghost Quarter is a pretty good budget inclusion. Next up we have my big mana lands. Urborg's not really a big mana land, but it combines with Cabal Coffers to be a big mana land, and Nykthos is just a really sweet big mana land. So Nykthos, Shrine to Nyx, is a legendary land. You can tap to add 1 colorless mana to your mana pool. You can pay 2 of any and tap it to choose a color, add your mana pool, an amount of mana that is of that color equal to your devotion to that color. So yeah, you just add up all your devotion and add a crap load of black to your mana pool, basically. Cabal Coffers, on the other hand, you can't tap it by itself, so it's got that going for it. Kind of bad, but there's a reason this is like a $20 card or whatever. You can pay 2 of any and tap it to add 1 black to your mana pool for each swamp you control. And Urborg turns all lands into swamps. So yeah, all your shit's swamps, and then you get to make a lot of mana. It's good stuff. Next up, I'd like to talk about my 2-for-1 lands. That's what I call these, but I don't really know what they're actually called. We have Ancient Tomb. You can tap it to add 2 colorless mana to your mana pool, and it deals 2 damage to you. In Commander, that's not a big deal because you have 40 life. And Ancient Tomb is just sweet, just a really good like ramp land. Temple of the False God, a lot of people play with. It's kind of like Ancient Tomb, but you have to have 5 lands to activate it. But it doesn't do any damage, so that's pretty good. And then Mirrored Landscape enters the battlefield tapped, which is lame. But you can tap it to add 1 mana to your mana pool, which is lame. But you can pay 2 and tap it, and sack it, and search your deck for up to 2 basic lands and put them onto the battlefield tapped. You have to be the same land type, but who cares, we're playing swamps, so you get 2 swamps and you slam them onto the battlefield. So yeah, just get you more swamps. Next we have High Market, and you can tap it to add 1 colorless mana to your mana pool, and you can tap it to sacrifice a creature and gain 1 life. So basically this lets you help flip Liliana. Also, you can sacrifice stuff that your opponent's going to like gain control of, or anything like that. Just being able to sacrifice a creature at will is very, very strong. And the 1 life, while not a huge deal, comes up, you know, every now and then. Next we run Westvale Abbey. This is a pretty sweet card for this deck. You can tap it to add 1 color to your mana pool. You can pay 5 and tap it and pay 1 life to put a 1/1 white and black human cleric creature onto the battlefield. And you can pay 5 and tap it and sack 5 dudes, transform it, then untap it. And when you transform it, it becomes Ormondal, Profane Prince, Flying Lifelink, Indestructible Haste. Yeah, that's badass. Look at this big old fucking demon guy. Yeah, pretty sweet inclusion. The last 5 non-basic lands are just kind of like these utility lands, and we'll just go over them one at a time. So Arcane Lighthouse, tap it to add a colorless. You can pay 1 and tap it until end of turn. Creatures your opponents control lose Hexproof and Shroud, and can't have Hexproof and Shroud. So, fuck you, Hexproof and Shroud. I'm gonna blow your shit up. I don't care. Arcane Lighthouse, really sweet for that kind of stuff. We also have Bojuka Bog, which is basically a free graveyard hoser. Enters the battlefield tapped, which is lame. But when it enters the battlefield, you can exile all cards from a target player's graveyard, and you can tap it to add a black. Just a sweet inclusion, just to hose over your opponent's graveyard. Gyre Reach Sanitarium is a sweet-ass card, especially when combined with Geth's Grimoire. It's a legendary land. You can tap it to add a colorless to your mana pool. You can pay 2 and tap it. Each player draws a card, then discards a card. And if you have Geth's Grimoire into play, or on the battlefield, you know, anytime your opponent discards a card, you get draw a card. So each player draws a card, and then you get to draw another card every time your opponent discards a card. So, yeah, really cool with that. Next, we have Mirrorpool, one of my pet cards, like one of my most recent pet cards, I say. I like to jam this basically in any commander deck that can generate a decent amount of colorless mana. I think like 10-ish, if you have like 10 cards that can do colorless mana or something. I don't know. I don't know the right number. Maybe a little more than that. But it enters the battlefield tap. You can tap it, add a colorless. You can pay 2 and a colorless and tap it, sacrifice it, copy an instant or sorcery spell you control, and then choose new targets for the copy. Or you can pay 4 and a colorless and tap it, and put a token onto the battlefield that's a copy of target creature you control. This is a sweet land. You can copy a spell, you can copy a creature. Like, this is really sweet. And then last but certainly not least, this is my beat up Volrath Stronghold that I had when I was like in middle school. I literally had this card and played it when I was in middle school. It is a legendary land. You can tap it to add a colorless mana to your mana pool. You can pay a black and pay 1 of any and tap it and put target creature card from your graveyard on top of your library. Yeah, this card is sweet. Just recursion in a land, doesn't even come into play tapped. There's a reason this card is so expensive. It is a sweet, sweet card. And just the fact that I've had this card for so many years is huge nostalgia factor for this. I love Volrath Stronghold. And finally, we have 22 swamps. Yep, just 22 swamps. That's about it. And there you guys have it. That was my Liliana Heretical Healer deck strategy video. If you liked it, then let me know, man. Let me know what you liked about it. Let me know what you didn't like about it. It might have been a little bit long. I wanted to do the cards in person. I know a lot of people who do these videos just put the cards up digitally, and I could do that, and it'd be easy. But I want to show you, like, my cards. I want to show you, like, the cool, like, variations in cards I have. Like, so for some of my other decks, I have, like, signed cards. I have 4 and black border cards. Like, I want to show you the cool things that you can do with Magic, not just like, here's a card image, like, there you go. Like anytime I watch those videos, I'm always thinking, like, I want to see your deck. I want to see your favorite deck, and that's what I'm doing in these videos. These are my decks, the decks that I play, like, you know, every other day. You know, this is my shit, man. My favorite stuff. So, yeah, that is my Liliana deck with all my, like, Liliana type themed cards. There is a deck list in the description down below. You know, just a tapped out one, whatever. It's the one that I use. Yeah, guys. Like the video, comment, subscribe, let me know what you think. I don't know what my next one is going to be. Maybe my Maelstrom Wanderer deck. I might go with like my SRAM deck, or I don't know yet. We'll see. But hope to see you guys next time, and I hope you guys like the video. Have a good one all, and I will see you later.